Tonight, the night air rests softly over the world, and somewhere beyond the quiet darkness, old streets and old houses wait beneath a pale sky. The lamps burn low. Small windows hold little pools of warm light. A slow wind drifts through narrow roads and moves gently around corners of brick and stone. The world feels quieter here. The world feels slower. And as the day loosens its grip and the sounds of work slowly fade, we step into another time. We enter the long years of the Victorian age. Far away, morning is still waiting beyond the horizon. The sky remains dark blue, almost gray, and the streets are calm before the first footsteps of the day. Rows of houses stand closely together. Chimneys rise into the cool air. Thin lines of smoke drift upward and disappear. Most people are sleeping. But not everyone. For many children in the Victorian world, the feeling of being young was often very different from the way people imagine childhood today. Childhood existed, of course. Families loved their children. Parents worried for them. Mothers tucked blankets around sleeping shoulders. Fathers carried tired children home when little legs could no longer walk. But many boys and girls also lived inside a world where work arrived early. Very early. Long before the sun touched rooftops. Long before breakfast fires were warm. Long before sleepy eyes wanted to open. In a small room high inside a crowded building, a child shifts beneath a rough blanket. The mattress beneath him is thin. Sometimes it is little more than cloth filled with straw. The room is dark except for pale moonlight touching the floorboards. Beside him, brothers and sisters sleep close together. Breathing quietly. Turning slowly beneath blankets. Outside, distant sounds drip through the streets. A cartwheel rolling over stone. A horse moving at a slow pace. Footsteps somewhere below. The city itself never fully sleeps. And then a voice breaks the silence. Soft at first. Time to wake up. For a moment there is stillness. Then another call. Time to get up now. The child opens heavy eyes. His body still wants sleep. His arms feel warm beneath blankets. The room feels cold beyond him. For a few seconds he simply lies there listening. Listening to wind against windows. Listening to breathing around him. Listening to the quiet. Then slowly he sits up. And the day begins. For many Victorian children, days often began before sunrise. Sometimes much earlier. The morning routines were usually simple. Very simple. There was little time for lingering. Little time for stretching awake beside warm fires. Water might be splashed onto a face. Hair pushed back. Clothes pulled on quickly. Shoes tied with sleepy fingers. The room still dark. The world still dark. Then downstairs. Then outside. The air feels cool against tired skin. Street lamps flicker softly. Shadows stretch across narrow roads. And many children walk quietly beside adults heading toward another long day. Some children worked in factories. Some worked in workshops. Some sold things in busy streets. Some cleaned houses. Some carried heavy loads. Some delivered messages. Others worked in fields beneath open skies. Many jobs were small jobs. Jobs adults barely noticed. Yet they filled long hours. Hours that felt endless to young shoulders and tired feet. The roads slowly begin to wake. Bakery windows glow with warm light. The smell of bread drifts into the cold air. Fresh loaves rest beside ovens that have already burned for hours. Workers move inside quietly. Hands knead dough. Wood crackles in fires. Flour dust settles gently onto tables. Some children pass these windows each morning. Perhaps they glanced toward the warmth. Perhaps they smelled bread and wished for breakfast. Then continued walking. Step after step. Toward work. The streets become busier now. More footsteps. More wheels. More voices. Morning spreads slowly over rooftops. The sky changes from deep blue to pale gray. And the city begins another day. For some children, factories waited at the end of those streets. Large buildings. Tall windows. Brick walls darkened by smoke. Inside, machines already moved. Already turned. Already hummed and clattered before sunrise. Children entering these places often stepped into another world entirely. A world of motion. A world of routine. A world that followed clocks. Inside, the air could feel heavy. Dust floating through shafts of morning light. The smell of oil. The smell of cloth. The smell of heat. Rows of machines stretched into the distance. Adults worked beside children. Children worked beside children. Hours passed beneath the sounds of turning wheels and moving belts. The same sounds over and over. Steady. Endless. Rhythmic. Perhaps after a while the sounds became part of the body itself. Something always there. Like rain falling on rooftops. Like waves touching shore. Like breathing. Morning slowly became afternoon. Afternoon slowly became evening. Outside, sunlight crossed the sky. Clouds drifted. Birds moved overhead. But inside, time sometimes felt different. Days felt long. Hours moved quietly. And many children simply continued working. Not every child worked in factories. Victorian life held many different worlds. In villages far from crowded cities, children woke to different mornings. The first light touched fields and grass wet with dew. Birds called softly from trees. Mist rested over quiet land. And farm days began. There was always something waiting. Animals needing food. Water needing to be carried. Tools needing to be moved. Fields needing hands. Children often helped families because families depended on one another. Everyone's work mattered. Even small hands could help gather eggs. Help carry wood. Help watch animals. Help pick crops beneath warm afternoon skies. Life moved with seasons. Spring arrived slowly. Summer brought long days. Autumn filled wagons. Winter carried cold winds across empty fields. Children learned routines early. Very early. Not because anyone sat down and announced that childhood was over. Life simply asked things from people. And families answered. The years passed this way. One season becoming another. One morning becoming the next. Some children attended school. Some could not. Some moved between both worlds. School for a while. Work for a while. Back again. Rooms filled with desks and books were not always quiet places of imagination and comfort. Sometimes they were strict places. Places of rules. Places where lessons had to be remembered carefully. But even there, children remained children. Eyes drifted toward windows. Thoughts wandered outside. A bird passing overhead could become more interesting than numbers on a board. Clouds moving across the sky could feel larger than any lesson. Young minds still wandered. Young hearts still dreamed. Because childhood never fully disappeared. It simply lived differently. Even after long work days, children found small spaces where being young returned quietly. A stick could become a toy. A stone could become treasure. A patch of grass could become a world. Games appeared suddenly and disappeared just as quickly. Laughter still existed. Friendships still formed. Small moments still arrived. Perhaps two children walking home kicked pebbles along the road. Perhaps brothers raced one another beside fences. Perhaps sisters whispered stories beneath blankets after dark. The day might have been long. But somewhere inside it, childhood waited. Patiently. Quietly. Finding room wherever it could. Night eventually returned. Street lamps glowed again. Windows warmed with candlelight. Families gathered inside small homes. Dinner smells drifted through rooms. Soup. Bread. Potatoes. Simple meals after long hours. Bodies tired from standing. Hands tired from work. Feet tired from walking. Children sat quietly. Sometimes speaking. Sometimes simply listening. The warmth of food spread slowly through empty stomachs. The day loosened its hold. And outside, darkness settled once more over roads and rooftops. Inside bedrooms, blankets waited. Thin mattresses waited. Sleep waited. Children climbed into bed beside brothers and sisters. Eyes already heavy. Bodies already sinking toward dreams. Outside, wind touched windows softly. Chimneys whispered smoke into the night. The city breathed quietly. And somewhere in the darkness another morning waited. Still distant. Still hidden. But slowly coming closer. Night slowly drifts onward above the rooftops, and the darkness settles gently over rows of brick houses and narrow streets. The windows that held warm candlelight grow dim one by one. Small flames become softer. Rooms become quieter. The sounds of footsteps below fade into stillness. Inside crowded homes, families sleep close together. A father rests after long hours of labor. A mother finally closes tired eyes after washing clothes, preparing meals, mending fabric, and caring for children through the day. Brothers and sisters lie side by side beneath rough blankets. The house itself settles into silence. Wood creaks softly. Wind brushes along walls. Somewhere far away, a horse moves slowly through empty streets. The night feels still. And yet morning waits patiently beyond the horizon. Hours pass quietly. Then darkness begins to soften. Not all at once. Only a little. The sky changes first. Black becomes deep blue. Deep blue becomes pale gray. The first signs of another day appear so gently that they are almost invisible. Then somewhere a door opens. A worker steps outside. A lantern swings lightly in one hand. A few moments later another door opens. And another. The world stretches awake. Inside one small room, a young girl opens her eyes before the sun rises. For a few seconds she does not move. She listens. Breathing nearby. Wind outside. A cartwheel somewhere in the distance. Her body still feels heavy with sleep. Warm blankets press softly against her shoulders. The floor beyond them feels cold. For a moment she stays perfectly still, enjoying the last quiet moments before the day begins. Many children knew this feeling. That small space between sleeping and waking. That tiny moment when the day had not fully arrived yet. Because once feet touched the floorboards, routine would begin again. Slowly she sits up. Around her, others are beginning to wake. Sleepy movements. Soft voices. Someone yawns. Someone searches for shoes in the dim light. The room remains shadowed. Morning has not yet reached the windows. Clothes are pulled on. Hair is brushed back quickly. Hands rub tired eyes. Then downstairs. The air below feels cooler. A small fire may already be burning. Perhaps breakfast is waiting. Perhaps not much at all. Many families lived carefully with what they had. Bread might rest on a table. Maybe porridge. Maybe tea. Simple food. Food meant to carry people through long hours ahead. No one sits for very long. Time matters. The clock matters. Outside, the streets slowly fill once again. The morning air feels damp and cool. A thin mist hangs low over roads. Shoes tap against stone. Workers move quietly through pale early light. Children walk among them. Small figures wearing coats that feel slightly too large. Hands tucked into pockets against the cold. Faces still carrying traces of sleep. Some walk beside parents. Others walk with brothers and sisters. Some walk with friends from nearby homes. Voices remain quiet at first. Morning often carries its own kind of silence. People are awake, but not fully. The city itself seems to yawn and stretch. Smoke rises slowly from chimneys. Shop windows begin to glow. Bakery doors open. Warm smells drift into the air. Fresh bread. Warm flour. Wood smoke. The scent moves gently through streets and around corners. Children passing by may turn their heads for a moment. Just for a moment. Warm bread had a way of catching attention. Warmth itself had a way of catching attention. Especially on cold mornings. Then footsteps continue. The road continues. The day continues. Some children moved toward workshops where small trades filled long hours. The rooms were often busy places. Hands working constantly. Scissors cutting cloth. Needles moving through fabric. Tools tapping against wood. Leather being shaped. Metal being worked. Voices drifting through the air. Workshops carried many sounds, but not the giant endless sounds of factory machines. Instead they held smaller sounds. Closer sounds. Human sounds. Children sometimes learn trades this way. Watching. Helping. Repeating simple tasks. Slowly understanding routines through practice. Days and weeks folded together. Morning after morning. Season after season. Hands remembered movements. Bodies learned schedules. The world became familiar. And children grew older inside these routines without always noticing. Sometimes sunlight entered workshop windows and rested quietly across dusty floors. Small floating pieces of dust drifted through warm beams of light. Children might pause for only a second and watch them move. Tiny things moving slowly through the air. Tiny things with nowhere particular to go. Outside those windows, life continued. Street sellers called out softly. Dogs wandered through roads. Horses pulled carts carrying food and coal and supplies. People greeted neighbors. People hurried toward work. People lived ordinary lives. And children watched these things whenever moments allowed. Because even during work, the world still moved around them. Sometimes children worked outdoors. Newsboys walked through streets carrying papers beneath their arms. Young sellers stood near roads offering flowers, matches, fruit, or small items. Voices rose into the air. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Simply repeating the same words again and again throughout the day. Hands grew cold in winter. Feet grew tired from standing. Hours stretched quietly onward. The weather became part of everything. Rain arrived and covered roads with mud. Wind slipped through coats and sleeves. Summer brought heat that rested over streets and buildings. Children felt these things every day. The weather touched work, touched meals, touched sleep, touched everything. During warmer days, sunlight reflected against windows and stone walls. Dust rose from roads beneath passing wheels. The air felt thick, heavy. People moved a little slower. Faces carried small drops of sweat. Shadows beneath buildings became welcome places. Even a small patch of shade could feel comforting. Children understood this naturally. They knew where cooler air rested. They knew where walls blocked sunlight. They knew where breezes moved through narrow streets. Sometimes after hours of standing or walking, they paused there. Only for a few moments. Only long enough to rest tired legs. Only long enough to breathe. Because work waited. Work almost always waited. And still, childhood found ways to remain present. A child passing another child could exchange a smile. Two friends might walk together and quietly invent stories. Someone might find a smooth stone on the road and carry it in a pocket all day. Someone else might notice clouds shaped like ships or birds. Small things. Simple things. But childhood often lives inside small things. It does not always require large spaces. Or endless free hours. Sometimes it exists in tiny moments hidden quietly between duties. Afternoon slowly arrived. Morning light changed. Shadows shifted. The sky moved overhead without asking anyone to notice. People continued working. Hands continued moving. Feet continued walking. The rhythm of the day carried everyone forward. Then slowly, almost unnoticed, the light began changing again. Golden sunlight stretched lower. Buildings cast longer shadows. The air cooled little by little. Even tired people felt this change. Even children felt it. Even without looking at the sky. Bodies simply knew. Evening was approaching. The street slowly changed once more. Workers began moving home. Voices returned. Doors opened and closed. Windows glowed with soft light. The smell of cooking drifted through the air. Soup simmering. Bread warming. Potatoes boiling. Simple meals waiting after long days. Children walked home beside families. Feet moving slowly now. Legs feeling heavy. Eyes feeling tired. But home waited. Warmth waited. Rest waited. And for many children, those quiet evening hours held something gentle. Something peaceful. Something that belonged only to them. The day slowly loosened its grip. And the night opened its quiet arms once again. The evening settles gently across the streets, and the last pieces of daylight drift slowly away from windows and rooftops. Shadows become softer now. The sky changes from pale gold to blue, and then from blue to a deeper color that quietly welcomes the night. The city begins to exhale. The busiest sounds have already passed. The wheels and footsteps that filled the roads through the day become fewer now. Shop doors close one by one. Wooden shutters move across windows. Lamps glow along narrow streets, creating small islands of warm light surrounded by darkness. Inside homes, families gather together after another long day. Many Victorian homes were small places. Rooms often carried many purposes. A table used for meals might later become a place for mending clothes. A chair used during supper might become a resting place beside a fire before sleep. People learn to share space. People learn to live close together. Children knew the sounds of their homes very well. They knew which floorboards creaked beneath footsteps. They knew the sound of the front door opening. They knew the small noises made by wind around windows during cold weather. They knew the sounds of family members moving through rooms even before seeing them. These little things became part of daily life. Part of ordinary life. Part of comfort. A young boy sits quietly beside a small fire now, holding his hands toward the warmth. His feet ache slightly after standing through long hours. Not enough to stop him from walking. Not enough to make him complain. Just enough to remind him that the day has been long. The warmth feels good. Very good. Nearby, his mother folds clothing carefully. Slow hands. Patient hands. Hands that have worked all day and still continue moving. Across the room, younger children sit close together. One leans against another. Sleep already begins to pull gently at tired eyes. A father removes work boots and stretches tired shoulders. No one speaks very much. Not because anyone is unhappy. Sometimes tiredness itself creates quiet. After long days, silence often feels comfortable. Silence can feel warm. Silence can feel like rest. Outside, the streets continue settling. A horse passes slowly over stone roads. Its footsteps sound softer now in the evening air. Somewhere farther away, voices drift briefly through the darkness before fading. Then quiet returns again. Inside homes, meals are served. Simple meals most of the time. Bread rests beside bowls of soup or stew. Potatoes. Vegetables. Whatever families could prepare. Children eat slowly. Sometimes quickly. Hunger after long days often decides that. Warm food spreads through tired bodies. The feeling moves gently through arms and legs. A small comfort after many hours. Many children looked forward to these evening moments. Not because they were grand moments. Not because something extraordinary happened. Simply because home felt different. Work belonged to one world. Home belonged to another. Even if homes were crowded. Even if money was scarce. Even if days were difficult. Home still carried familiar things. Familiar smells. Familiar voices. Familiar warmth. After meals, some children still found small pieces of energy hiding somewhere inside them. Children often do. Even after long days. Even when eyes feel heavy. A boy may pick up a small wooden toy resting near the floor. Perhaps it is worn smooth from years of use. Perhaps someone made it by hand. A girl may quietly hum to herself while helping fold clothes. Brothers may whisper something and quietly laugh together. Small moments continue appearing. Like tiny lights in dark places. Because childhood rarely disappears entirely. It bends. It changes shape. But it remains. Outside, rain begins falling softly. Only a little at first. Small drops touching rooftops. Small drops tapping windows. The sound spreads slowly through the night air. Soon many roofs carry the same gentle rhythm. Tap. 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 The streets become wet. Lamplight reflects across stone roads and puddles. The city grows quieter still. People hurry indoors. Doors close against cold air. Warm rooms become even warmer now. Children often listen to rain at night. Listened while lying beneath blankets. listened while sleep slowly approached. Rain has always carried a quiet feeling. A feeling that the world outside is resting. A feeling that nothing urgent remains. Inside bedrooms, preparations for sleep begin. Blankets are unfolded. Candles burn lower. Children climb stairs slowly. Feet drag just a little now. Bodies feel heavy. The day has settled into muscles and shoulders. Into tired legs. Into sleepy eyes. Bedrooms are often shared spaces. Brothers together. Sisters together. Sometimes many children together. Beds may be narrow. Rooms may be small. Yet people become used to closeness. Children whisper quietly beneath blankets. Very softly. Just above the sound of wind outside. Perhaps someone talks about tomorrow. Perhaps someone talks about something seen during the day. A dog in the street. A bird resting on a roof. A strange cloud shape. Simple things. Children notice simple things very carefully. Often more carefully than adults. Because childhood still watches the world differently. Even inside hard routines. Even inside long days. A young girl stares toward the ceiling now. Moonlight reaches through the window and touches part of the room. Everything looks softer in moonlight. Everything feels quieter. She hears rain outside. She hears breathing nearby. She hears distant wheels moving somewhere beyond the streets. Her eyes begin closing slowly. Not all at once. Slowly. The day drifts backward through her thoughts. Morning streets. Work. Voices. Footsteps. Warm bread smells. Afternoon sunlight. Evening meals. Then the thoughts become softer. Sleep begins gathering around them. For many Victorian children, days often followed familiar paths. Morning came. Work came. Evening came. Night came. Again and again. The rhythm repeated so often that life itself sometimes felt like a quiet song. Not a hurried song. Not a loud one. Just a steady song moving from season to season. From year to year. And somewhere inside those long days, children continued growing. Height changing little by little. Voices changing little by little. Hands becoming stronger. Faces becoming older. Sometimes the changes were too small to notice. Like watching shadows move. Like watching grass grow. Days simply carried children forward. Slowly. Patiently. Outside, the rain becomes lighter now. The clouds begin moving away. The moon appears again between them. Its pale light rests gently over sleeping streets. Over rooftops. Over chimneys. Over quiet windows. Over tired homes where children finally sleep. And above everything, the night remains still and calm, holding the world gently as another morning waits somewhere far beyond the darkness. The night continues quietly above the sleeping streets, and the clouds move slowly across the sky like soft shadows drifting over dark water. Rain has passed now. Rooftops still shine with small drops that catch pale moonlight. Chimneys stand silently against the darkness, and rows of houses rest beneath the cool air. Most windows have gone dark. Most doors remain closed. Most footsteps have disappeared. Only a few sounds remain awake. A horse somewhere in the distance moves carefully along wet streets. A late cart rolls slowly over stone. Wind brushes softly around corners and through narrow passages between buildings. The city sleeps. Inside small homes, children sleep too. Blankets rise and fall gently with breathing. A hand rests beneath a cheek. A tired arm stretches across a pillow. Faces that look serious through long hours of work now appear peaceful in sleep. Sleep changes people. Especially children. The weight of the day slips away for a little while. No clocks. No tasks. No instructions. No footsteps hurrying toward another morning. Only dreams. Only quiet. Only rest. Hours pass this way. Slowly. Very slowly. Then somewhere beyond the horizon, another morning begins its gentle approach. Darkness becomes softer. The sky slowly changes again. Night never seems to leave suddenly. It always takes its time. A faint gray light touches distant rooftops. Clouds become easier to see. The shapes of buildings slowly return. Birds begin their quiet morning songs. One voice first. Then another. Then several more. The city stretches itself awake once again. Inside one home, a young boy opens his eyes and stares quietly at the ceiling. He blinks once. Twice. For a moment he simply lies there. Morning has arrived again. The familiar feeling returns immediately. The feeling of another day waiting. He hears movement downstairs. Someone has already woken. Someone is preparing for the day. Perhaps water is being poured into a basin. Perhaps wood is being placed into a fire. Perhaps someone is already moving through the kitchen. The sounds are soft. Ordinary sounds. Sounds repeated so many times that they almost become invisible. Children often grow up surrounded by these rhythms. Without realizing it, they learn the shape of mornings. They learn the sound of waking homes. They learn that certain noises mean breakfast. Certain noises mean hurry. Certain noises mean time to leave. Slowly he sits up. Blankets slide from his shoulders. The room feels cool. His feet touch the floor. The boards beneath him feel cold against sleepy skin. Across the room, brothers and sisters begin waking too. Someone rubs tired eyes. Someone yawns. Someone stays beneath blankets for one extra moment before finally sitting up. No one moves quickly yet. Morning asks for patience at first. Clothes are gathered. Buttons are fastened. Shoes are found beneath beds. Hands smooth wrinkled fabric. Hair is pushed into place. The room slowly fills with movement. Then downstairs. The fire glows softly. Warm light flickers across walls. The smell of breakfast drifts through the air. Nothing grand. Nothing large. Simple food again. Bread. Porridge. Tea. But warmth matters. Warmth always matters. Children sit quietly at tables. Eyes still carrying sleep. Outside the windows, the world grows brighter. The streets begin waking. Smoke rises from chimneys in thin gray lines. Doors open. Footsteps return. The familiar rhythm starts once more. Many Victorian children knew days that felt very similar to one another. Not exactly the same. Never exactly the same. Rain changed things. Seasons changed things. Unexpected moments changed things. But routines often stayed close. And routines have a quiet power. When days repeat themselves gently, people stop noticing many things. Children stop noticing how much taller they have become. Parents stop noticing tiny changes in faces. Weeks become months. Months become years. Time walks quietly. Very quietly. Far from crowded city streets, morning arrives differently. Villages wake beneath open skies. Fields stretch across the land, still covered with pale morning mist. The grass shines with drops of water left behind from the night. The air smells fresh and cool. Birds move through trees. Cows stand quietly near fences. Farmhouses sit peacefully beneath soft early light. Children living in these places often woke to different sounds. Not wheels against stone. Not crowded streets. Instead they heard roosters calling. They heard animals stirring. They heard wind moving through fields. They heard wooden gates opening. Morning work waited here too. Always something waiting. Always something needing hands. A young girl steps outside carrying a small basket. The grass beneath her shoes feels wet. Cold morning air brushes against her face. She walks slowly across the yard. The world feels peaceful at this hour. Almost everyone knows this feeling. The feeling that early morning belongs to quiet things. Even work feels softer before the day fully begins. Animals wait to be fed. Water waits to be carried. Eggs wait to be gathered. Children help because families work together. Life often depended on many hands. Small hands mattered too. The work itself became familiar after enough mornings. Hands remembered movements without needing to think. Open the gate. Carry the bucket. Gather the eggs. Walk carefully. Return again. Routine settles into people like gentle footsteps wearing paths into earth. And still, even here, childhood moved quietly through the spaces between work. A child carrying water might stop beside a stream for a few moments. Only for a few moments. Long enough to watch sunlight touch the surface. Long enough to watch tiny ripples move across the water. Long enough to notice clouds reflected there. Children notice these things naturally. Their eyes drift toward small wonders. Toward moving water. Toward birds in trees. Toward insects resting on leaves. The world offers many quiet things to notice. Even during busy days. Even during long days. Morning slowly climbs higher. Sunlight grows warmer. Mist begins disappearing from fields. The earth itself seems to wake completely now. Children continue their work. Adults continue theirs. Another day unfolds gently. Step by step. Hour by hour. And somewhere far above it all, clouds drift slowly across the wide open sky, following their own patient journey without ever needing to hurry. Morning rises higher now, and soft sunlight spreads across rooftops, fields, and narrow streets. The cool air that rested over the world before sunrise begins to change. Little by little, warmth settles onto stone walls and window glass. The day opens itself slowly. Children continue walking beside the rhythm of ordinary life. Hours pass in quiet work. Hands move. Feet move. Voices come and go. The world keeps breathing in its calm and familiar way. In city streets, shopkeepers stand outside doorways preparing for the day ahead. Wooden signs hang above entrances and move gently in light wind. A broom brushes dust from steps. A window is opened. Crates are carried inside. Morning light reaches into places that were dark only a short time ago. Children pass these streets every day. After enough days, enough weeks, enough years, every corner becomes familiar. They know where sunlight reaches first. They know where puddles remain after rain. They know which bakery releases warm smells into the road before anyone else. They know where cats sit quietly near windows. Children remember places differently from adults. Adults often remember destinations. Children remember little things along the way. The shape of a fence. The crack in a wall. The tree branch hanging over a road. The sound of pigeons gathering near rooftops. These small details stay quietly inside the mind. A young boy walks now with careful steps along a narrow street. His shoes tap softly against stone beneath him. Around him people move with steady purpose. A woman carries baskets. A worker pushes a cart. Two men talk quietly beside a doorway. Nothing feels hurried. The day is moving, but it is moving in its own slow rhythm. The boy glances toward a window as he passes. Inside, he sees cakes resting behind glass. Small cakes. Simple cakes. Their tops shine softly in the morning light. He slows for only a moment. Just a moment. Children often pause for small things. Their attention moves easily. A bird can steal attention. A dog passing by can steal attention. The smell of warm bread can steal attention. The world feels full of things waiting to be noticed. Then footsteps continue again. Work waits. The road continues. Morning continues. Inside workshops and factories, the day grows warmer as hours pass. Sunlight pushes through windows and stretches across floors covered with dust and footprints. The sounds continue. Steady sounds. Familiar sounds. Machines turning. Scissors cutting. Voices speaking. Tools tapping against wood and metal. The rhythm repeats itself again and again. Children working in these places often learn the shape of time through sound rather than clocks. The body begins understanding when morning is nearly gone. The body notices when hunger begins arriving. The body notices when shoulders grow tired. The body notices when light changes through windows. Time can be felt. Time can be carried inside muscles and breathing. Outside, the sky becomes brighter still. Clouds drift slowly over the city. Sunlight warms brick walls. Dust rises beneath wagon wheels. Summer days especially could feel long. Very long. Heat rested over roads and buildings. Air became heavier. People wiped foreheads with sleeves. Shadows became welcome places. Children noticed shade immediately. Shade beneath trees. Shade beside walls. Shade beside narrow passages where sunlight could not reach. Even a few cooler moments could feel important. Sometimes during work, a child might stand near an open doorway for only a short while. Long enough to feel a breeze. Long enough to close tired eyes for a second. Long enough to breathe cooler air. Simple comforts often felt large after many hours. The body remembers comfort. Always. Far from cities, the countryside moves beneath its own quiet rhythm. Fields stretch beneath open skies. The earth smells warm beneath sunlight. Grass moves gently with the wind. Children helping on farms continue their work beneath wide skies that seem endless above them. A young girl kneels near rows of plants now. The soil feels dry beneath her fingers. Sunlight touches her shoulders. Birds drift overhead. She works quietly beside others. Hands moving slowly. Patiently. No one rushes the earth. Seeds grow in their own time. Rain arrives in its own time. Harvest comes in its own time. Farm life often teaches patience without saying a word. Children learn it naturally. They learn that many things cannot be hurried. The sun climbs. Then slowly begins climbing downward again. Hours slip by almost unnoticed. Children grow tired without realizing exactly when it happened. Legs feel heavier. Arms feel slower. Eyes blink a little longer. Fatigue arrives quietly. Very quietly. Not all at once. Like evening shadows stretching across the ground. Like clouds moving across sunlight. Children often carried this tiredness with them through daily life. Not because childhood disappeared. Not because joy disappeared. But because many days asked much from small bodies. And still those same children found moments to look upward. Moments to notice birds. Moments to notice clouds. Moments to notice the way sunlight moved across buildings or fields. The world continued offering small gifts. Tiny peaceful things waiting beside ordinary life. Afternoon begins arriving now. The sunlight changes. It becomes softer. Long shadows slowly appear beneath trees and walls. People notice it without speaking. The body notices it. Morning work begins feeling farther away. Evening slowly begins moving closer. And children, whether standing in city streets or walking through quiet fields, feel something gentle growing inside them. The feeling that home is waiting. The feeling that rest is waiting. The feeling that another long day is beginning to loosen its grip, one quiet hour at a time. Afternoon settles softly over the world now, and the sunlight begins its slow journey toward evening. The brightness of midday gently fades. Golden light rests against rooftops and slides across windows. Long shadows stretch quietly over roads, fields, and narrow alleyways. The day feels older now. Morning energy has slowly thinned away. Even the city itself seems to move differently during these hours. Footsteps become slower. Voices soften. Workers lift tired shoulders and continue through the remaining hours ahead. Children feel it too. Perhaps more than anyone. A young boy stands near a workshop doorway and shifts his weight from one foot to the other. His legs ache in that quiet way tired legs often do. Not sharply. Not loudly. Just a gentle heaviness that settles into knees and feet after standing for many hours. He glances outside. The street beyond the doorway carries its own small world. A woman walks carefully with baskets hanging from her arms. Two boys run past chasing one another for a few moments before disappearing around a corner. A dog pauses near a cartwheel and stretches lazily in the warmth. Small things. Ordinary things. But tired eyes sometimes notice ordinary things more carefully. The world can appear softer when a person grows tired. Time itself feels softer. Inside the workshop the sounds continue around him. Scissors move through cloth. Voices rise and fall. Wood taps gently beneath tools. The same sounds that filled the morning continue now. Familiar sounds. Steady sounds. Sounds that have become part of the day itself. Children often learn the language of these places without realizing it. Every building carried its own voice. Factories spoke through turning wheels and moving machines. Workshops spoke through tools and hands. Homes spoke through kettles, footsteps, and fires. Even streets had voices. Horse hooves against stone. Cartwheels rolling slowly. Doors opening and closing. People calling to one another. Every place carried its own rhythm. And children grew up surrounded by these rhythms every day. Far away from the city, the countryside breathes beneath warm afternoon skies. Fields stretch peacefully toward distant hills. The earth gives back the warmth it collected beneath the sun. A gentle breeze moves across grass and crops, creating soft waves of movement that travel slowly across the land. A young girl wipes her forehead and pauses beside a fence. For a few moments she simply rests. Nearby, birds sit quietly along branches. Clouds drift overhead with no hurry at all. She watches them. Children have always watched clouds. Children living long ago watched clouds just as children do in any age. Shapes appear and disappear. A cloud becomes a ship. Then becomes a mountain. Then becomes something else entirely. For a little while work fades into the background. The mind drifts somewhere softer. Somewhere lighter. Then a voice calls gently from farther away. There is more to do. And so the moment passes. But not completely. Small peaceful moments rarely disappear completely. They stay quietly inside memory. Even years later. Even after childhood itself begins changing. As the afternoon moves onward, schools also begin emptying. Children carrying books step outside into cooling air. Some walk home. Some head toward work waiting elsewhere. Some simply move along familiar roads with friends beside them. Voices become brighter now. Children speak more freely once lessons are finished. Conversations drift through the streets. Words rise and fall like birds moving through the air. For a little while there is a feeling of lightness. Feet move more quickly. Eyes seem more awake. Even after long days, children somehow find small pieces of energy hidden somewhere inside themselves. A stick lying near the road becomes part of a game. A smooth stone becomes something worth keeping. Two friends race toward the next corner. Only for a few moments. Only until another responsibility appears. Childhood still waits quietly in these spaces. Not large spaces. Not endless spaces. Just small openings hidden between duties. The sun lowers further now. Its light becomes rich and warm. Windows shine like gold. The tops of buildings glow softly. The world looks different during these hours. Gentler. Calmer. The hardest part of the day has begun slipping away. People feel it. Children feel it. The thought of evening begins arriving before evening itself appears. Home waits somewhere ahead. Warm food waits. Familiar voices wait. Rest waits. And for tired children walking through Victorian streets beneath fading sunlight, those thoughts alone could feel comforting enough to carry them through the final steps of another long day. The sun continues its slow descent, and evening light settles gently over the streets and fields. The golden glow softens the edges of buildings and turns ordinary windows into quiet mirrors of light. Chimneys and rooftops stand dark against the sky, while long shadows stretch across roads where so many footsteps have already passed through the day. The world seems to breathe more slowly now. The busiest hours are beginning to loosen their hold. In city streets, workers gradually make their way home. Doors open and close. Wagon wheels roll with less urgency. Shopkeepers stand in doorways and look out over roads that are growing calmer. Children move through these streets too. Some walk beside parents. Some walk beside brothers and sisters. Some walk with friends whose houses wait just a little farther down the road. Their steps are slower now than they were in the morning. The body always knows when the day is ending. Even without clocks. Even without looking toward the sky. The body simply understands. A young girl walks quietly beside her older sister. Their shoes tap softly against stone beneath them. The sound rises and disappears, joining all the other small sounds of evening. Around them, lamps are beginning to glow. One by one. Warm circles of light appear near doorways and along streets. The air feels cooler now. The warmth of the afternoon slowly slips away. A gentle breeze moves through the roads and between buildings, carrying small pieces of the city with it. The smell of bread baking somewhere nearby. The smell of coal smoke drifting from chimneys. The smell of dinner fires beginning to burn. Children notice these things. Perhaps they did not stop and think about them. Perhaps they simply felt them. Familiar smells often become part of home itself. Part of safety. Part of ordinary life. The sisters continue walking. Nearby, a horse pulls a cart at an unhurried pace. Its hooves create a steady rhythm against the street. Clop. 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 Slow sounds often feel comforting at the end of long days. Slow sounds ask nothing from anyone. They simply exist. Far away in the countryside, evening arrives with its own quiet voice. Fields that held bright sunlight through the day now rest beneath softer colors. The sky stretches wide above the earth, carrying pale orange and blue together near the horizon. The wind moves gently through tall grass. Animals settle for the night. Birds return toward trees. Children helping on farms finish the final tasks of the day. Gates are closed. Tools are put away. Buckets are carried back. The work grows smaller now. Less and less remains. A young boy stands beside a fence and watches the sky while waiting for someone nearby. He does not speak. He simply watches. Children often do this naturally. Adults sometimes hurry past evening skies because thoughts are full of tomorrow and responsibilities and unfinished things. Children often pause. Their eyes wander upward. Their attention drifts. Clouds become interesting. Colors become interesting. The changing sky becomes interesting. For a little while nothing else matters. Even tiredness becomes softer. Even work feels farther away. The evening sky has a quiet way of doing that. Back in the city, windows begin filling with light. Families return home. Rooms that sat empty through the day become warm again. Voices return. Footsteps return. The sounds of ordinary family life slowly gather together. Inside one small house, a boy opens the door and steps inside. Warm air greets him immediately. The feeling reaches him before words do. The warmth from a small fire. The smell of food cooking. The familiar sounds of home. He removes his shoes slowly. His shoulders feel heavy. His legs feel tired. He does not notice these feelings all at once. He notices them only now, because home allows the body to finally rest. People often carry tiredness differently while they are working. The body waits. The body keeps moving. Then home arrives. Then tiredness quietly says hello. Children are no different. A younger sister sits near the fire. She looks up and smiles. A parent moves through the room carrying bowls toward the table. Someone stirs something cooking over heat. Simple things. Ordinary things. Yet ordinary things often become the most important things. Especially at the end of long days. Outside, darkness slowly gathers across the rooftops. The last sunlight fades gently from the sky. One star appears. Then another. Night approaches again with patient steps. And somewhere deep inside tired children, beneath aching feet and sleepy eyes and long routines, there remains a small quiet feeling. The feeling of being home. The feeling of being safe. The feeling of knowing that for a little while, the world can finally become still. Night settles fully now, and the streets outside grow quieter with each passing moment. Darkness gathers gently around chimneys and rooftops. The lamps that shine along the roads create soft pools of light, while everything beyond them fades into shadow. The city becomes calmer after dark. Not silent. Cities rarely become completely silent. Somewhere in the distance, Wheels still move slowly over stone. A late traveler walks beneath dim lamps. A door closes. A window opens for a moment and then closes again. Small sounds. Faraway sounds. Sounds that feel softer beneath the night sky. Inside homes, evening routines continue with patient familiarity. Children sit close to fires whose warm light dances across walls and ceilings. Flames move gently and quietly. Shadows shift slowly around the room. The warmth feels good after long hours spent outdoors or standing at work. Very good. A young boy stretches his feet toward the fire without thinking about it. His shoes rest nearby. His socks feel warm now. Across the room, his mother repairs clothing beneath candlelight. Her hands move carefully through fabric. Needle in. Needle out. Again. Again. Small work still remains, even after the larger work of the day has ended. Many Victorian homes carried this quiet evening labor. Things needed mending. Things needed cleaning. Things needed preparing for tomorrow. Tomorrow always waited nearby. Children watched these routines every day. Not as lessons. Not as instructions. Simply as life unfolding around them. And children learn many things by watching. A little girl sits on the floor nearby with her head resting against her father's knee. Sleepiness has already begun finding her. She blinks slowly. Very slowly. Her eyes open. Then close. Then open once more. She listens to voices around her without paying attention to the words. When people grow tired enough, voices become something gentle and distant. Like rain against windows. Like wind outside. Comforting sounds that slowly drift together. Outside, cold air slips through narrow streets and around corners. Above the city, clouds move quietly across the moon. Some children are still awake beyond these homes. Newsboys returning after long days. Children finishing late tasks. Children walking beside older family members through dark roads. Victorian life was not the same for every child. Some returned to warm fires. Some returned to crowded rooms. Some returned to quieter places. Some returned to places where sleep came quickly because tiredness had become too heavy to carry any longer. But even among long hours and responsibilities, childhood continued appearing in quiet ways. A boy walking home might stop to watch his breath in cold air. A girl might pause to look at stars above rooftops. Two brothers might quietly race toward their front door before stepping inside. Small things. Simple things. Childhood often lives inside moments no larger than that. Not grand moments. Not important moments to anyone else. Only small pieces of life that feel bright for a little while. Inside the house, supper dishes have now been cleared away. The fire burns lower. Candles have become shorter. The room itself feels sleepy. People speak less. Bodies move more slowly. The day has settled heavily onto shoulders and eyes. Children begin climbing stairs now. One after another. Slow footsteps. Sleepy footsteps. A hand slides along the wall while climbing. Someone yawns. Someone rubs tired eyes. The sounds become quieter as they disappear upstairs. Bedrooms wait in soft darkness. Blankets wait. Pillows wait. Rest waits. A young boy climbs into bed and pulls rough blankets around himself. The sheets feel cool at first, then slowly warmer. Beside him, brothers settle into sleep too. Moonlight reaches through the window and touches the floor. Outside, the city continues breathing quietly beneath the stars. The day is finished now. Completely finished. No more footsteps toward work. No more long hours. No more tasks waiting. Only the gentle feeling of tiredness drifting slowly into sleep. And as children close heavy eyes beneath the quiet roofs of the Victorian world, another morning waits patiently beyond the darkness, still far away, still hidden, and in no hurry at all. The night moves onward with slow and patient steps, and the houses rest beneath a sky filled with quiet stars. Moonlight slips gently across rooftops and touches the edges of chimneys. The streets below seem softer now, almost as if darkness itself has wrapped them beneath a blanket. Inside bedrooms, sleep settles deeply. Children who spent the day walking, carrying, standing, helping, and working rest beneath worn blankets and simple sheets. Their breathing rises and falls quietly in the darkness. Sleep has a gentle way of evening things. The small child and the grown worker both close tired eyes. The busy street and the empty road both become still. For a few hours, the world asks nothing more. A young boy turns slightly in bed and pulls his blanket closer around his shoulders. Somewhere nearby, another child sighs softly in sleep. The room itself feels warm with familiar closeness. Many Victorian children shared sleeping spaces. Brothers and sisters slept beside one another. Sometimes several children shared one bed. Sometimes entire families lived within only a few rooms. There was little space for privacy. Little space for quiet corners. Yet children often grew used to these things. The sound of breathing nearby became normal. The sound of floorboards creaking became normal. The sound of someone whispering just before sleep became normal. Home is often built from familiar sounds. Even small sounds. Even ordinary sounds. Hours pass. Outside, clouds drift slowly across the moon. The city rests. Then, little by little, the darkness begins changing again. Morning approaches with quiet feet. The first gray light appears far away beyond the rooftops. Birds begin waking. One small song enters the air. Then another. Then several more. A cool breeze slips through narrow streets. The day stretches itself awake. Inside homes, children begin waking too. Not all at once. Slowly. Very slowly. Sleep leaves tired eyes reluctantly. A young girl blinks toward the window beside her bed. For a moment she remains still beneath her blanket. Morning has arrived again. She knows what waits. Many children knew. They knew before their feet even touched the floor. The day already had its shape. Certain hours belonged to certain tasks. Certain moments belonged to routine. Morning carried its own familiar rhythm. And many Victorian children grew up with responsibilities arriving very early in life. For some children, the years between being very small and becoming grown felt shorter than people might imagine. Not because childhood vanished completely. Childhood was still there. Children still laughed. Still played. Still wondered about clouds and birds and stories. But responsibility often arrived quietly and stood beside them very early. A little girl might help care for younger brothers and sisters. A boy might carry supplies. Children might sweep floors, wash dishes, deliver goods, or help wherever help was needed. No one stood beside them and announced some great moment when childhood ended. Life simply unfolded. One morning becoming another. One year becoming another. One task becoming another. Children often stepped into larger shoes little by little. So slowly that they barely noticed. The world around them expected many things. Families depended upon many things. and children became part of that rhythm. Yet even during these mornings, small moments still appeared. A young boy pauses outside a doorway and looks upward. The sky carries long pale clouds moving across soft blue. Sunlight rests gently upon rooftops. For only a few seconds, he watches. Nothing more. Just watching. Children have always done this. Their eyes wander naturally toward small pieces of the world. Toward birds resting along fences. Toward smoke curling upward from chimneys. Toward sunlight shining across puddles left behind by rain. Even inside busy lives, wonder still found quiet places to sit. Morning grows brighter. Doors open. Footsteps return. The streets wake once more. Shoes tap against stone. Voices drip through cool air. The city begins breathing in its familiar rhythm. And somewhere among the crowds and carts and chimney smoke, children walk beside another day, carrying small responsibilities in small hands, while still holding tiny pieces of childhood close beside them. Morning unfolds slowly across the city, and sunlight begins touching windows that only a short while ago rested beneath gray dawn. The light moves gently along rooftops and slips into narrow streets where the day has already started. The roads become busier now. Footsteps cross stone paths. Cartwheels roll over uneven ground. Voices rise and fall around corners. Smoke lifts softly from chimneys and disappears into the pale sky. Another ordinary day has arrived. A young boy walks beside his father through the cool morning air. His hands stay tucked inside his coat pockets, hidden from the cold. Beside him, his father's steps remain steady and familiar. Children often walk beside adults through these streets. Beside mothers carrying baskets. Beside fathers heading toward work. Beside older brothers and sisters who already knew the rhythm of daily life. As they walked, children listened. Even without meaning to. They listened to conversations. They listened to neighbors greeting one another. They listened to shopkeepers opening doors and workers beginning another day. Children learn much this way. The world quietly teaches them while they move through it. Ahead, a bakery door opens and warm air slips into the street. The smell follows immediately. Fresh bread. Warm flour. Wood smoke. The boy turns his head without thinking. Almost everyone does. Warm bread has a quiet way of calling attention. For a moment he watches people moving inside. Hands shaping dough. Flour dust resting across tables. Morning sunlight touching wooden shelves. Then he continues walking. Because the day continues walking too. Victorian children often stood close beside the world of adults. Closer than people sometimes imagine. They heard conversations about money. About work. About food. About worries. About tomorrow. Children sat near fireplaces while parents talked quietly. Children stood nearby while decisions were made. Children watched faces carefully. Sometimes they understood. Sometimes they understood only pieces. But children notice many things. They notice tired voices. They notice worried eyes. They notice when someone smiles more softly than usual. Even small hearts can carry understanding. A young girl now sits near a window in a small home while holding her baby brother. Morning light rests gently across the floor beside her. Outside, the street carries its usual movement. People pass. Horses move slowly. Doors open and close. Inside, the room feels quieter. She rocks gently back and forth. Very gently. The baby sleeps against her shoulder. Many children helped care for younger brothers and sisters. They carried them, watched them, comforted them. Not because anyone wished to take childhood away. Simply because families often worked together like threads woven closely into one cloth. Everyone carried some small part. Even young hands. Outside the window, clouds drift overhead. The girl notices them. Children almost always notice windows. Windows offer small journeys. They offer little pieces of the world beyond walls. She watches a bird land along a rooftop nearby. The bird pauses. Looks around. Then lifts itself back into the air. For a few moments her eyes follow it. Small moments again. Simple moments. Quiet moments. Childhood often hid itself there. Not in grand adventures. Not in endless free afternoons. But in brief pauses where imagination could quietly open its eyes. As the morning slowly moves onward, sunlight grows warmer. The streets grow fuller. Voices become louder. Work continues. Routine continues. And children continue moving through the day beside everyone else. Some carry tools. Some carry books. Some carry baskets. Some carry younger siblings. Some carry responsibilities that seem a little large for small shoulders. Yet inside many of them still lives the part that notices clouds. The part that watches birds. The part that slows down to look at puddles shining beneath sunlight. Because even when many Victorian children were asked to grow up early, childhood rarely disappeared all at once. It simply walked beside responsibility. Quietly. Patiently. Like a small companion keeping pace through crowded streets and long days. And above the city, beyond the smoke and rooftops and chimneys, the sky stretches peacefully overhead, calm and wide, carrying slow white clouds across another gentle morning. The day continues its steady path forward, and morning light grows stronger across rooftops and streets. The city feels fully awake now. Not rushed, not hurried in every corner, but fully awake in its familiar, repeating rhythm. People move with purpose. Work resumes in its many forms. Doors open and remain open. Windows stay bright with daylight. And the world carries on as it always has. Inside homes, children begin the parts of the day that come after morning. Some leave for work. Some leave for school. Some remain at home helping with smaller tasks that fill the hours between sunrise and evening. The patterns change slightly from one child to another, but the feeling of the day remains similar. A quiet structure. A steady flow. A sense that time is divided into familiar pieces. A young boy now walks alone along a narrow street, carrying a small bundle wrapped in cloth. His steps are careful, steady, practiced. He knows this route well. He knows where stones rise slightly from the ground. He knows where puddles sometimes remain after rain. He knows where sunlight rests warmly against walls at this time of day. Children often learn their surroundings deeply. Not through maps or instructions, but through repetition. Through walking the same paths again and again. Through noticing the same corners in different seasons. The street feels different in winter than in summer. Different in rain than in sun. Different in early morning than in late afternoon. Yet it is always the same street. Familiar. Known. The boy passes a small group of workers standing outside a building. Their voices are low, steady, ordinary. Nothing dramatic. Just conversation woven into the beginning of another working hour. He continues walking. The bundle in his hands feels light, but his arms still tire after a while. He adjusts it slightly and keeps moving. Beyond him, the city opens into wider roads. Horses pull carts carrying goods. Shopkeepers call softly to passing customers. A bell rings somewhere in the distance. Life moves in overlapping layers. Each person carrying their own small piece of the day. In another part of the city, a girl stands near a doorway watching the street. She has finished her morning tasks for now, and there is a brief pause before the next. These pauses are small, often unnoticed by others. But they matter in quiet ways. In these pauses, children sometimes breathe more slowly. Sometimes rest their hands. Sometimes look outward without needing anything in return. She watches a group of children pass by laughing softly at something she cannot hear. Their voices drift for a moment and then fade as they turn a corner. She follows them with her eyes for a short while. Then she looks up at the sky instead. Clouds move slowly overhead. Not fast. Not urgent. Just moving. Always moving. The sky has a way of reminding people that time exists beyond streets and buildings. Beyond schedules. Beyond work. A wider time. A slower time. And children often feel that without needing to name it. Inside workshops and homes, the day continues. Hands work. Feet move. Objects are carried, repaired, cleaned, or prepared. The same patterns repeat with small variations. And through all of it, children grow quietly within the structure of the world around them. They learn patience from waiting. They learn endurance from repetition. They learn awareness from small moments of rest. A boy pauses briefly beside a canal where water moves slowly under a wooden bridge. He watches the surface for a moment. Light touches the water. It breaks into soft reflections. Shapes shift and reform with every small ripple. He stands there only for a short time. Then he continues. Because the day continues. And still, even in this steady movement of life, childhood does not vanish. It moves alongside everything else. In laughter shared between tasks. In a glance upward at drifting clouds. In the quiet curiosity that returns again and again, even after long hours of responsibility. The world keeps turning. The city keeps breathing. And beneath it all, life unfolds gently, 1 hour at a time, as another afternoon slowly begins to gather its light across the Victorian world. Afternoon light settles gently across the city once again, softer now than the brightness of morning. The sun has moved higher and then begun its slow descent without anyone needing to notice the exact moment it changed direction. Time in this world rarely announces itself. It simply moves. Quietly. Steadily. Like water flowing through a familiar path. The streets feel warmer now. Stone walls hold the heat of the day. Windows reflect a pale golden glow. Shadows begin to lengthen again, stretching slowly across roads and doorways. Inside workshops and small buildings, the rhythm of labor continues, though something subtle begins to shift. The energy of morning is no longer present. The sharpness of early hours has softened. Movements grow slower. Voices lower. Even sounds seem to settle deeper into the air. A young boy leans briefly against a wooden post inside a workshop. His arms feel tired in that familiar way that comes after many hours of repeating the same motions. He does not stop working for long. Only a moment. Just enough to rest his weight for a breath or two. Then he straightens again and continues. Nearby, others move with the same quiet persistence. Hands that began the day fresh are now dusted with traces of work. Clothing carries faint marks of effort. Hair falls slightly out of place. But everything continues. Because the day is not yet finished. Outside, a breeze moves through the street. It carries the smell of dust warmed by sunlight. The scent of bread from a distant oven. The faint trace of smoke rising from chimneys. Children walking through the street pause sometimes without realizing why. Perhaps it is the breeze. Perhaps it is the change in light. Perhaps it is nothing at all, only a small pause the body allows itself. A girl stands near a stone wall and feels the warmth of it beneath her fingertips. The wall has been warmed by hours of sunlight. It holds that warmth gently. Not sharply. Not strongly. Just enough to notice. She rests her hand there for a moment. Then she lets it go. Small sensations like this often remain in memory longer than expected. The feel of warm stone. The sound of distant carts. The sight of light shifting across rooftops. Children gather these moments without trying. Like small pieces of a quiet collection. Far beyond the city, the countryside also moves through its afternoon rhythm. Fields stretch beneath a sky that has deepened slightly in color. The light is no longer as sharp as before. It feels softer against the earth. A young boy walks along a dirt path carrying a small container of water. The path curves gently between fields that sway slightly in the wind. He walks carefully. Not quickly. Not slowly. Just steadily. The land around him feels open in a way that city streets do not. There are no tall buildings here. Only sky. Only earth. Only the slow movement of grass and wind. He pauses once near a fence and looks out across the fields. Everything seems still from a distance. But when he looks closely, everything is moving. Grass bending. Leaves shifting. Clouds traveling. Even stillness is never truly still. He drinks a little water and then continues on his way. The afternoon continues its long and quiet journey. Back in the city, children begin to feel the slow return of tiredness. Not the sharp tiredness of exhaustion, but the softer kind that arrives after many hours of steady activity. It settles into shoulders. Into legs. Into thoughts that drift more easily. Some children are sent on small errands. Some are finishing work. Some are simply waiting for the next task to arrive. Waiting itself becomes part of the day. A boy sits briefly on a low step outside a building. He does not speak. He does not move much. He simply sits, watching the street pass in front of him. People continue walking. Carts continue rolling. Shadows continue stretching. Time continues moving forward. But for a few moments, he is still. And in that stillness, there is a kind of quiet rest. Not sleep. Not pause from life. Just a small space between one thing and the next. The sky above begins to shift again. The light grows warmer in tone, leaning slowly toward the colors of evening. Gold deepens. Blue softens. The edges of the world become gentler. And somewhere far ahead, beyond the rooftops and fields and winding roads, the idea of home begins to return once more, slowly forming in the minds of those who have been moving through the long, steady hours of the day. The afternoon slowly loosens its grip on the world, and the light begins to soften once again. It is not yet evening, but something in the air already feels closer to it. The sun has begun its long descent, and everything beneath it carries a quieter tone. Shadows lengthen across streets and fields. Walls that stood bright earlier now rest in softer color. Windows begin catching the gold of late daylight. And the world continues its steady rhythm, unchanged, familiar, patient. Inside the city, the final stretch of work carries on. Hands that have been moving since morning continue their tasks, though more slowly now. Movements are no longer sharp. They are careful, practiced, almost automatic. A young boy inside a workshop adjusts his posture again. His shoulders feel heavy, but he keeps working. Around him, others do the same. No one speaks much. The day has entered a quieter stage where words are no longer needed. Only routine remains. Only movement remains. Only time moving forward remains. Outside, the street feels different now than it did earlier. The brightness of morning has completely faded. Even the warmth of midday has softened. A gentle breeze passes through, carrying dust and the faint scent of distant cooking fires preparing for evening meals. Children walking through the street notice this change without needing to think about it. They feel it in their steps, in their breathing, in the way their thoughts begin drifting toward home. A girl walks slowly beside a low wall, her fingers brushing against its rough surface. She is not in a hurry anymore. Few people are in a hurry at this hour. Her work for the day is nearly done. Or paused. Or waiting for tomorrow. Time becomes less sharp in these final hours. More gentle. More forgiving. She stops for a moment and looks down the road. The street stretches into distance softened by light and dust. People move along it like small figures in a wide and quiet painting. Everything feels slower now. Even sound feels softer. Even footsteps seem to echo less. Far away, near the edge of the city, fields open once more under the shifting sky. The countryside enters the same gentle transition. Farm work slows. Tools are gathered. Animals are guided back toward familiar places. A young boy walks beside a small herd, his hands resting lightly against a wooden gate as he closes it carefully behind them. The animals settle. The field becomes still again. Not empty. Just resting. He looks up at the sky for a long moment. Clouds drift in soft layers across the fading light. The sun hangs lower now, closer to the horizon. Everything seems to lean toward the same quiet direction. Toward evening. Toward home. Toward rest. Inside the city again, children begin gathering the small pieces of their day. Some return from errands. Some leave workspaces. Some walk in groups, talking quietly as they move through familiar streets. Their voices are softer now. Less frequent. Like the day itself is asking for quiet. A boy carries a small bundle wrapped in cloth again, now heavier than before, not because it has changed, but because his arms are more tired. He adjusts it carefully and continues walking. His steps are steady, but slower than they were in the morning. He passes a bakery where the last warm light of the day shines through the glass. Inside, only a few pieces of bread remain. The room looks quieter now. Almost finished with its day. He does not stop this time. He simply walks past. Because evening is drawing closer. And with it, the familiar pull of home becomes stronger. Windows begin to glow once more as families prepare for the return of those who have been away through the day. Smoke rises gently from chimneys again, not as morning preparation, but as evening warmth. The air grows cooler. Softer. More still. A sense of settling spreads across everything. Even the sky seems to slow its movement. The colors above deepen. Gold fading into amber. Amber into soft blue. Blue into the first hint of night. And in that gentle fading, the Victorian world continues its quiet rhythm, where children, after long hours of responsibility, move step by step toward the simple comfort of home, where warmth waits, and silence begins to feel like rest. Evening arrives slowly, without hurry, as if the world itself prefers to take its time letting go of the day. The last light of the sun rests low across rooftops and narrow streets, touching everything with a soft, fading glow. Colors deepen gently, like ink spreading through water. The city begins to quiet again. One layer of sound after another fades into the background. Workplaces grow still. Streets become less crowded. Voices soften as people turn their steps toward home. Inside small houses, warm light begins to appear in windows. Candles are lit. Small fires are fed. Kitchens begin to fill with the familiar rhythm of evening preparation. Children are often part of this return. They walk through the fading streets, their steps slower than before, their bodies carrying the gentle weight of the entire day. A young boy walks beside an older man through a narrow road lined with brick buildings. The air feels cooler now, brushing lightly against his face after the warmth of the afternoon. He says little. Most children at this hour say little. Not because there is nothing to say, but because the day has already said so much. The street feels different in evening light. Everything seems closer. Quieter. More familiar. Windows glow softly like small lanterns scattered along the road. Behind them, shapes move slowly, families gathering, meals being prepared, rooms being made ready for the night. The boy passes a doorway where a warm smell drifts into the street. Stew simmering. Bread cooling. Simple food filling small rooms with comfort. He keeps walking, but the smell follows him for a few steps before fading behind. Far away, the countryside also settles into evening. Fields that were active earlier now rest beneath long shadows. The wind moves gently across tall grass, bending it in slow waves. Farmhouses glow faintly in the distance, small and steady beneath the wide sky. A young girl closes a wooden gate and pauses. Just for a moment. Her hands rest on the rough wood. The day is nearly finished. Animals are inside. Tools are put away. Water buckets are no longer needed. The land itself seems to breathe more slowly now. She looks out across the fields one last time. The horizon is soft, glowing with the final trace of sunlight. Then she turns and walks toward home. Not quickly. Not slowly. Just steadily, like everyone else returning from the long day. Back in the city, dinner begins to fill the homes. Simple meals placed carefully on wooden tables. Bread broken into pieces. Soup shared among family members. Steam rising gently into warm rooms. Children sit close together, their tiredness finally becoming more noticeable now that they are no longer moving. Shoulders relax. Hands rest. Eyes drift slightly downward. A young girl leans against her mother's side while holding a spoon loosely in her hand. She eats slowly, not because she is unwell, but because the body has begun to understand that the day is ending. The fire nearby burns softly. Its light flickers across the room, moving slowly over walls and faces. Outside, darkness continues to gather. Not sharply. Not suddenly. But like a curtain being drawn across the sky in gentle folds. One star appears. Then another. The first signs of night returning to its full shape. After dinner, the household begins to settle further. Dishes are cleared. Small tasks are finished. Conversation becomes quieter. Children move closer to sleep, even if bedtime has not yet fully arrived. A boy sits on the floor near the fire, his back resting against a chair. His eyes are half open now. He watches the flames without focusing on them, letting their movement fill the quiet space inside him. The room feels warm, safe, familiar. The kind of warmth that makes the outside world feel very far away. Somewhere beyond the walls, the wind moves gently through the street again, passing over rooftops and chimneys that now stand dark against the night sky. The city continues its slow transformation into silence. Homes become still. Lights grow dimmer. Footsteps disappear from outside paths. Inside, children are lifted or guided toward beds. One by one. Slowly. Without resistance. Blankets are pulled up. Heads rest against pillows. Eyes close more easily now than they did earlier in the day. A soft stillness settles into every room. The kind of stillness that belongs only to night. And as sleep begins to take hold, the Victorian world becomes quiet again, holding its children gently through another long cycle of days that begin early and late, and carry within them both the weight of responsibility and the quiet, fleeting softness of childhood moments that appear between all the hours of work and rest. Night deepens once more over rooftops and narrow streets, and the last traces of evening light fade into a quiet darkness that feels steady and familiar. The city no longer moves with the energy of the day. It now rests in a slower rhythm, one that belongs to sleep and stillness. Windows glow faintly here and there, but most have gone dark. Candles are lowered. Fires settle into soft embers. Rooms grow quieter as the hours move forward without interruption. Inside small homes, children sleep again. Their bodies have finally released the weight of the long day. Arms rest loosely beside blankets. Faces soften in the calm of sleep. Breathing becomes slow and steady, blending gently with the quiet sounds of the night. A soft wind passes outside. It moves through the streets without disturbance, touching rooftops, slipping between buildings, and continuing onward without leaving a trace. The world feels suspended in calm. In one room, a small boy shifts slightly in his sleep and turns toward the wall. The blanket around him folds softly with his movement. Beside him, another child sleeps without stirring. The closeness of shared space continues even in rest. That closeness was part of many Victorian homes. Beds placed near one another. Rooms shared between siblings. Walls thin enough for voices and footsteps to be heard easily from the next space. Yet in sleep, these details fade into comfort rather than noise. Familiarity becomes gentle. The night moves onward. Hours pass slowly, one after another, without urgency. And somewhere beyond the rooftops, beyond the sleeping streets, the sky begins its quiet transformation again. The darkest part of the night softens slightly. A faint change appears along the horizon. Morning is not yet close, but it is no longer absent either. Time continues its endless circle, as it always does. In the countryside, the silence feels even wider. Fields lie still beneath a sky filled with distant stars. Grass no longer moves much except for the occasional touch of wind. Animals rest in their shelters. Farmhouses glow faintly, holding small pockets of warmth against the cold night air. A young girl sleeps in a small room near the edge of the fields. Her day ended long before her thoughts could linger. Now she rests deeply. The land around her is quiet enough to feel endless. Far away, a stream moves gently over stones, its sound soft and constant, like something breathing beneath the night. Back in the city, the Victorian world remains still. No carts move now. No voices rise from the streets. Only the occasional creak of wood as buildings settle into the coolness of night. Even that sound feels distant. Time seems to stretch here in a different way. Not fast. Not slow. Just steady. like the turning of something ancient and familiar. Inside one home, a faint glow remains near the hearth where embers continue to warm the room. A parent moves quietly, adjusting a blanket over a sleeping child before sitting down again in silence. No words are spoken. None are needed. The night itself carries everything softly. Outside, clouds drift across the moon again, briefly covering its light before moving away. The rooftops below shift between shadow and pale glow as the moon returns. It feels like a slow breathing motion across the city. Light and darkness passing over it in calm rhythm. And as the hours continue, the world grows deeper in stillness. Sleep spreads further. From house to house. From street to street. From child to child. Each one resting inside the same quiet night, held gently within the slow passage of time. And somewhere far beyond the darkness, another morning waits again, patient and unseen, ready to arrive only when the night has fully completed its long, gentle journey. The night grows deeper now, settling into its quietest hours. The city lies still beneath a wide sky where the stars shine softly without rush or change. The moon drifts slowly, casting pale light over rooftops, chimneys, and narrow streets that no longer carry the sound of footsteps. Everything rests. Even the air feels still, as if it is holding its breath. Inside the homes, sleep continues its steady work. Children remain curled beneath blankets, their bodies warm against the coolness of the night. The tiredness of the day has fully softened now, no longer sharp or heavy, but gentle and far away, like something remembered rather than felt. A small boy turns slightly in his sleep again. His hand rests near his face. His breathing is calm and even. Beside him, the room is quiet. No movement except the faint rise and fall of sleeping bodies. In many Victorian homes, nights like this were long and uninterrupted. There were no bright lights to disturb sleep. No sounds of distant machines or modern noise. Only the natural quiet of the world outside. Wind moving gently through streets. A window shifting slightly in its frame. The distant call of an animal somewhere beyond the city. Even these sounds feel softened by distance and darkness. Time moves differently during these hours. It does not feel like something being measured. It feels like something flowing. Slowly. Continuously. Without effort. In the countryside, the night feels even more open. Fields stretch under the sky like dark, resting water. The wind moves across them in slow waves, bending grass that will straighten again with morning. A small farmhouse sits quietly near the edge of the fields, its windows dim and still. Inside, a family sleeps in shared rooms, close to one another for warmth. The night outside feels large, but not threatening. Just wide. Just still. Just present. A young girl shifts slightly under her blanket and then settles again, her sleep undisturbed. Far away, a faint sound of water moves through a stream, steady and unchanging, like a soft thread running through the darkness. Back in the city, the streets remain empty. No carts pass. No doors open. Even the lamps along the roads have dimmed or gone out, leaving only the moon to guide the shapes of buildings. The world looks different at this hour. Familiar places feel softer. Edges blur gently. Even stone and brick seem quieter. Inside one home, a parent sits briefly near the fire's remains, watching the last faint glow of embers. The light is almost gone now, but still warm enough to hold the room in a gentle hush. After a moment, they stand and move quietly toward bed. Every movement feels careful. Respectful of the sleeping house. The Victorian night often carried the sense of care. Of quiet movement. of shared silence. People learned to live gently after dark, not because they were asked to, but because the world itself encouraged it. Sleep was not just rest. It was part of the rhythm of life. A return. A pause. A soft closing of the day's long chapter. Outside, the sky continues its slow turn. The stars remain steady, watching over rooftops that no longer move or speak. Somewhere far away, the first hint of dawn begins to form again, though it is still hidden, still distant, still waiting its turn. For now, only night exists. Only stillness. Only the soft breath of a world at rest. And within that stillness, Victorian children sleep on, held gently by the quiet hours, where time slows, sounds fade, and everything becomes calm enough to drift deeper into rest. The night settles into its deepest calm now, the kind of calm that feels almost complete, as if the world has finally finished all its speaking and is resting between one breath and the next. Above the rooftops, the sky holds steady darkness, broken only by distant stars and the slow, patient glow of the moon. Nothing moves quickly here. Nothing demands attention. Everything simply exists in quiet balance. Inside the sleeping city, children remain wrapped in warmth and stillness. Their bodies have fully given in to rest now, no longer carrying the weight of footsteps, tasks, or long hours of work. The memory of the day has softened into something distant and unshaped, like a river smoothing stones over time. A small child turns slightly beneath a blanket, then becomes still again. Breathing continues. Soft. Even. Untroubled. Around him, the room holds a silence that feels almost protective. Wooden walls. Simple furniture. The faint scent of lingering warmth from earlier fires. All of it together forming a quiet shelter from the wide night outside. In Victorian homes, this quiet was often shared across many rooms at once. Not silence in isolation, but silence in community. Families sleeping near one another. Houses resting together in rows. Entire streets entering the same calm state at the same time. Even though each life carried its own rhythm during the day, night brought them all into the same stillness. Outside, a light wind passes through the city again. It moves between buildings, brushing along stone and wood, slipping past closed shutters, and continuing onward without interruption. A single loose shutter creaks softly for a moment and then settles. Even that sound feels far away, like something heard in a dream. Time continues, but gently now. Without urgency. Without direction. Only passage. In the countryside, the night stretches wider still. Fields rest beneath open sky, their shapes faint but steady in moonlight. Trees stand motionless at the edges of the land, their branches barely moving as the wind slows. A small stream continues its quiet path, water flowing over stones with patient persistence. The sound is almost invisible against the larger silence of night, but it is there, steady and constant. Nearby, a farmhouse rests in darkness. Inside, sleep is deep and uninterrupted. A child lies curled under a thick blanket, the kind of warmth that gathers and holds through long hours of cold night air. Everything outside feels far away. Not distant in fear. Distant in peace. Back in the city, the streets remain empty. No footsteps cross them now. No voices rise. Even the sense of movement has faded, leaving only stillness resting on stone and brick. The Victorian world at night feels almost like another version of itself. The same buildings. The same streets. The same homes. But softened. Slowed. Quieted. Inside one house, a faint glow still lingers where embers rest in the hearth. The light is very small now, almost gone, but it continues to give the room a gentle warmth that feels steady and familiar. A parent moves quietly through the room one last time, checking that doors are closed, that blankets are settled, that everything is as it should be for the night. Then they pause. Just for a moment. Before finally turning away toward sleep. Outside, the moon shifts slightly across the sky, changing how its light falls over rooftops and chimneys. Shadows move with it, slow and unhurried. The city breathes in darkness. A long, slow breath. And holds it. Somewhere beyond the horizon, faint and still distant, the earliest hint of morning waits again. Not arriving yet. Not visible yet. Only existing as possibility. But for now, there is only night. Only rest. Only the gentle, unbroken stillness of a world that has laid itself down to sleep, where Victorian children drift quietly through deep hours of calm, held safely within the slow, steady passage of time. The night continues its quiet journey, moving through its final depths with a calm that feels almost endless. The sky remains dark and wide, holding the stars like distant, steady lights that never hurry and never fade quickly. Everything below rests in the same patient silence. Roofs, streets, fields, homes. All of it held together by stillness. Inside the sleeping rooms, children remain deeply asleep. Their bodies are no longer aware of the day that came before. The long hours of work, movement, and small responsibilities have softened into something far away, something that no longer presses against their thoughts. Only rest remains. A child's hand rests loosely on a blanket. Another child lies turned slightly toward the wall. Someone breathes softly in a rhythm so steady it almost blends with the silence of the room. Sleep has fully taken them now, carrying them into the deeper part of night where time feels slower, softer, and less defined. In Victorian homes, this was often the longest stretch of quiet each day. Not because life outside was loud, but because life inside had finally paused. The world itself seemed to agree. Outside, the wind moves gently again, brushing along rooftops and slipping through narrow gaps between buildings. It is not strong enough to disturb anything, only enough to remind the city that it still breathes, even in sleep. A faint sound of a distant shutter shifts and then settles. A soft creak of wood follows somewhere far away. Then silence returns once more, deeper than before. Time continues, but almost imperceptibly. Like water moving through still ground. Like clouds drifting across a dark sky without notice. In the countryside, the night holds a different kind of stillness. The fields are wide and open, resting under a sky filled with scattered stars. The land feels spacious, almost endless, as if it stretches farther than memory can follow. A farmhouse stands quietly in this wide space. Its windows are dark. Its rooms are warm. Inside, a family sleeps closely together, their presence filling the small structure with a sense of shared rest. Beyond the walls, the night is vast, but it does not press in. It simply surrounds. A young child inside shifts slightly and then becomes still again, pulled deeper into sleep. Outside, the stream continues its soft movement, water flowing over stones in a steady rhythm that never changes. It is one of the few sounds that remains active through the night, yet even it feels gentle, like part of the silence rather than a break in it. Back in the city, the Victorian streets remain empty. No lanterns are lit now. No carts pass through. Even the idea of movement feels distant, as though the entire city has stepped away from itself for a while. Buildings stand quietly, their shapes softened by moonlight. Windows reflect only darkness or faint glimmers of the sky. Inside one home, the last traces of warmth remain near the hearth, though the fire has almost fully faded. The room holds onto that warmth like a memory. A parent lies down after ensuring everything is in order. The house is quiet, safe, still. Moments pass. Then more moments. And nothing interrupts them. Above, the moon continues its slow path, casting a pale glow that drifts across rooftops and fades again as clouds move through. The light changes, but never quickly. Everything here changes slowly. As if even time itself prefers to rest at night. And in that deep stillness, Victorian children sleep on without disturbance, held within the long, quiet hours where the world forgets its motion and becomes only calm, only steady, only soft enough for dreams to carry them through until morning waits again at the edge of the horizon. The night has now settled into its deepest and quietest hours, where even time seems to move more gently, as if it has lowered its voice to a whisper. The sky remains vast and dark, with only the steady presence of stars scattered across it like distant points of calm light. The moon drifts slowly, unchanged in its quiet journey, casting pale reflections over rooftops and streets below. Everything feels paused. Not frozen. Just resting. Inside the homes of the Victorian world, sleep continues to hold its steady rhythm. Children remain deep in dreams now, no longer aware of the weight of their bodies or the passage of hours. Their breathing is soft and even, blending into the stillness of the rooms around them. Blankets rise and fall gently. A small turn in sleep, then stillness again. The warmth of shared rooms lingers even in the coldest part of the night, where walls hold onto the memory of fires long since dimmed. In these hours, nothing is expected of anyone. Not movement. Not speech. Not thought. Only rest. Outside, the city remains still beneath the night sky. Streets lie empty, their stone surfaces faintly glowing under moonlight. Doorways are closed. Windows are dark. Even the usual sounds of distant life have faded into a deeper silence. A soft breeze moves through narrow streets, touching walls and rooftops without disturbance. It passes through without leaving anything behind, continuing onward like a quiet traveler with nowhere urgent to go. Time passes gently here. So slowly that it almost cannot be felt. In the countryside, the night stretches even wider. Fields lie open beneath the sky, their shapes barely visible except where moonlight touches them. Trees stand as dark silhouettes, unmoving, as if they are also resting. A farmhouse sits quietly in this wide stillness. Inside, sleep gathers every room into calm. A child turns slightly beneath a thick blanket and then becomes still again, drawn deeper into rest. The warmth inside contrasts softly with the cool air outside, creating a quiet balance that holds through the night. Beyond the walls, the land breathes slowly. The stream continues its soft path, water flowing over stone with patient persistence. It is one of the few sounds that remains, but even it feels like part of the silence rather than a disruption of it. Everything belongs to the same quiet. Back in the city, the Victorian world rests in full stillness. No lanterns flicker in the streets now. No carts disturb the roads. No footsteps cross the stone. The entire city feels suspended in sleep, as though it has folded itself inward for the night. Buildings stand close together, their outlines softened by darkness and moonlight. Chimneys rise like quiet shapes against the sky. Inside one home, a faint trace of warmth remains near the hearth. The fire has nearly disappeared, leaving only a gentle glow that barely lights the room. A parent sleeps nearby, breathing slowly, the day fully behind them now. The house feels complete in its silence. Protected by it. Held within it. Far above, the moon continues its unhurried movement across the sky. Clouds drift past it occasionally, softening its light before revealing it again. Each change is slow, almost unnoticeable unless watched for a long time. And yet, everything is always changing. Even in stillness. Even in sleep. Somewhere far beyond the horizon, the first suggestion of morning waits, not yet visible, not yet near, but quietly forming at the edge of time. For now, though, there is only night. Only rest. Only the deep and steady calm that covers the Victorian world, where children sleep on through long hours of silence, wrapped gently in the quiet rhythm of a world that has finally paused to breathe. The night continues its slow and gentle passing, and the world remains wrapped in a stillness that feels almost complete. The darkness is not heavy, but soft, like a quiet cloth laid over rooftops, streets, fields, and sleeping homes. Above it all, the sky holds its calm shape. Stars remain fixed in their distant places. The moon drifts patiently onward, unchanged in its steady rhythm. Nothing in the sky rushes. Nothing below it rushes either. Inside the Victorian homes, sleep has deepened further. Children lie still beneath their blankets, fully carried into dreams now, where the weight of the day no longer exists. Their small bodies rest without tension, without movement, without awareness of anything beyond warmth and quiet. A room that was full of life during the day now feels almost like a soft echo of itself. Beds close together. Walls holding faint traces of warmth. Air cool but comfortable. Everything slowed to its simplest state. Sleep is not only rest here. It is return. Return to silence. Return to stillness. Return to a place where nothing is required. Outside, the city continues its quiet transformation into deeper night. Streets that were once filled with footsteps now hold only shadow and moonlight. The shapes of buildings are softened by darkness, their edges blending gently into the air around them. Occasionally, a faint movement of wind passes through narrow alleys, touching doors and windows with a light, almost careful presence. But even the wind feels restrained. Respectful of the sleeping world. Time moves forward, but without emphasis. Without sound. Without urgency. In the countryside, the night feels even more open. Wide fields rest beneath an endless sky, their presence faint but steady. The land feels vast in a way that city streets never do, stretching outward into silence that seems to have no boundary. A farmhouse stands quietly in this space. Its windows remain dark. Its roof rests under a thin layer of moonlight. Inside, a family sleeps in shared calm, their breathing blending into one soft rhythm that fills the small home with quiet unity. The night outside does not intrude. It simply surrounds. A child turns once in sleep, then settles again, pulled deeper into the softness of rest. Far away, the stream continues its gentle movement over stones. Its sound is so consistent that it almost becomes part of the air itself, no longer separate from silence but woven into it. Back in the city, nothing changes quickly. Nothing interrupts the stillness. Even the sense of time feels stretched and softened, like it has slowed its pace to match the sleeping world. The Victorian streets remain empty. No carts. No voices. No lamps. Only darkness and the faint glow of moonlight resting over stone and brick. Inside one house, the last warmth of the day still lingers faintly in the air, though the hearth has long grown quiet. The room holds that warmth like a memory that refuses to fully disappear. A parent sleeps nearby, completely at rest now, their presence steady and calm. Everything in the house feels settled. Final. Peaceful. Outside, clouds drift slowly across the moon again, briefly dimming its light before moving away. The rooftops below shift between shadow and pale glow as the sky changes in quiet layers. Nothing happens quickly. Nothing needs to. And in that deep and unbroken stillness, Victorian children continue to sleep on, carried through the long, gentle hours of night, where the world itself feels softened at the edges, and time moves only as quietly as breath. The night now feels like it has no edges, only a wide and quiet presence stretching over everything at once. The sky remains dark and steady, holding the stars in their distant places like small points of calm light that never move and never hurry. Below, the world rests even deeper than before. Inside the sleeping homes, the silence has become almost complete. Children continue to sleep in the same soft positions, their bodies fully surrendered to rest. The day has long since loosened its hold on them, and now there is nothing left but calm breathing and stillness. A small hand rests open on a blanket. A child's face is turned slightly toward the wall. Another sleeps curled inward, as if gently protected by the warmth of the room itself. Nothing disturbs them. Nothing calls them. The hours pass without sound. In Victorian homes like these, night often felt long, but not empty. It was filled with the quiet presence of family nearby, even in sleep. Walls were thin, rooms were close, and yet this closeness brought its own kind of comfort. The feeling that no one was truly far away. Outside, the city remains motionless beneath the moon. Streets lie in complete stillness now, their stone surfaces washed in pale light that shifts only when clouds move slowly across the sky. The familiar sounds of daily life are gone. No carts. No voices. No doors opening or closing. Only the faint, occasional whisper of wind passing through narrow gaps between buildings, brushing softly against wood and stone before continuing onward. Even that sound feels like part of the silence rather than a break from it. Time continues, but it feels softer now, as though it has slowed itself to match the rhythm of sleep. In the countryside, the night stretches across fields and open land in a way that feels almost endless. The horizon is wide, and the sky above it seems even wider still. Grass lies still under the faint light of stars. Trees stand motionless at the edges of fields. The land rests without movement, as if it too has entered sleep. A farmhouse sits quietly in this wide space. Inside, the warmth of shared rooms remains, though the fire has long since faded to embers. Families sleep closely together, their presence filling the small structure with a steady, familiar calm. A child shifts once beneath a blanket, then becomes still again. The night holds everything gently, without pressure or urgency. Even the stream nearby continues its soft movement in a way that feels calm rather than active, its sound blending into the broader quiet of the land. Back in the city, nothing interrupts the stillness. The Victorian streets remain empty, unchanged, resting beneath the moon's slow passage. Buildings stand like silent shapes, their details softened by darkness. Chimneys rise without smoke. Windows reflect only faint traces of night. Inside one home, the final warmth of the hearth has nearly disappeared completely now, leaving only a trace of comfort in the air. A parent sleeps deeply, the same way the children do, fully surrendered to the night. Everything in the house feels settled into its final quiet form. There is no movement left to complete. No task left to finish. Only rest. Above it all, the moon continues its slow and patient journey across the sky. Clouds drift across it from time to time, softening its glow, then revealing it again as they pass. The sky changes in gentle layers that no one needs to notice in order for them to exist. And somewhere far beyond the horizon, the faintest suggestion of morning continues to form, still distant, still unseen, still waiting its turn. But for now, there is only night. Only deep and steady calm. Only the quiet breath of a world fully at rest, where Victorian children sleep through the long, peaceful hours, carried gently by time that moves as softly as a whisper. The night holds steady in its deepest calm now, as if the world has finally reached the quietest point of its long breath. Darkness rests evenly over everything, not heavy, not sharp, but soft and complete, like a wide blanket laid gently across land and sky. The stars remain distant and patient. The moon continues its slow, unbroken journey. Nothing changes quickly anymore. Everything has softened into stillness. Inside the sleeping homes, children remain fully at rest. Their sleep has grown deeper with each passing hour, carrying them far from the structure of the day. No thoughts of work remain. No awareness of time. Only the calm rhythm of breathing and the warmth of shared rooms. A child's arm lies loosely across a blanket. Another rests with their face turned slightly upward, calm and unmoving. Someone shifts faintly, then settles again, as if the body itself is finding the most comfortable silence. The rooms feel steady and protected, held together by the quiet presence of night. In Victorian homes, this deep night often carried a feeling of closeness even in isolation. Families might be asleep in separate rooms or shared spaces, yet the structure of the house itself felt like one resting body. Every floor still. Every wall quiet. Every room softened by sleep. Outside, the city remains unchanged in its stillness. Streets are empty. Stone paths are undisturbed. Doors remain closed. Even the faintest echoes of daytime life have fully disappeared. The only movement comes from the wind, and even that moves carefully, slipping between buildings without force, touching surfaces lightly before moving on. The rooftops are pale under moonlight, shifting only when clouds drift across the sky. Time continues, but without weight. Without urgency. In the countryside, the night feels even broader. Fields stretch outward in every direction, resting beneath a sky so open it feels almost endless. Grass lies still. Trees stand like dark outlines against the faint glow of stars. The land is completely at rest. A farmhouse sits quietly in the center of this wide silence. Inside, warmth lingers in the air even though the fire has long faded. Families sleep closely together, their presence creating a sense of community within the small structure. A child breathes softly and turns slightly in sleep, then becomes still again. The night outside feels distant, not in distance, but in feeling. It is present, but gentle. Surrounding, but not pressing. Even the stream nearby continues its slow, steady movement in a way that feels almost like part of the sleeping world itself, its sound blending seamlessly into the quiet. Back in the city, the Victorian streets remain completely still. No movement breaks the silence. No sound rises into the air. Even the sense of time feels as though it has slowed to its gentlest pace, moving forward without drawing attention to itself. Buildings stand quietly beneath the moon, their forms softened and simple in the darkness. Chimneys and rooftops blend into one another, shaped by shadow and faint light. Inside one home, only the memory of warmth remains now. The hearth is cold, but the feeling of earlier fire still lingers faintly in the room, like something remembered rather than present. A parent sleeps nearby, fully at rest, their breathing steady and unbroken. Everything within the house has settled into final quiet. No movement remains. No sound remains. Only sleep. Above, the moon continues its slow path across the sky. Clouds pass in front of it occasionally, dimming its light before revealing it again, as if the night itself is gently breathing in layers of shadow and glow. The sky changes without urgency, without notice. And far beyond the horizon, the first trace of morning continues to form in silence, still far away, still hidden, still patient. But for now, the world remains in night. Deep night. Quiet night. A night that holds everything gently in place, where Victorian children sleep on through long, soft hours of stillness, carried by a world that has finally learned to rest without interruption. The night now feels at its most quiet point, where even time seems to slow until it becomes almost invisible. The sky remains wide and dark, but something subtle begins to change at its farthest edge. Not suddenly. Not quickly. Only gently. A faint softness appears along the horizon, like the first breath of a world that is preparing to wake again. The stars still shine, but they feel slightly farther away now. The moon continues its slow journey, but its light begins to feel less like the only presence in the sky. Dawn is still far off. But it is coming. Inside the sleeping homes, nothing has changed in urgency, because there is no urgency here. Children continue to sleep in deep, steady calm. Their breathing remains soft and even, untouched by the quiet changes outside. A hand rests loosely on a blanket. A child turns slightly, then settles again. Another sleeps with their face half turned toward faint moonlight slipping through a window. The rooms remain warm in their stillness, carrying the memory of the day without holding onto it. In Victorian homes, these early hours before dawn often felt like the deepest rest of all. The world outside had already finished its movement, and the world inside had not yet begun again. Everything existed in a calm in-between. Outside, the city remains still, but the sky is no longer unchanged. A very soft gray begins to touch the darkest parts of the horizon. It is almost unnoticeable at first, like a whisper across the edge of night. Rooftops and chimneys remain in shadow, but their outlines begin to separate slightly from the darkness. The moon continues to fade into the shifting sky, no longer alone in its glow. Wind moves lightly through empty streets, passing over stone and wood, as if gently preparing the world for its next turn. But nothing wakes yet. Nothing disturbs the sleep below. In the countryside, the change is even more subtle. Fields remain still, but the sky above them carries the faintest suggestion of light returning. The wide land feels suspended between night and morning, neither fully one nor the other. A farmhouse rests quietly within that space. Inside, families continue to sleep deeply, their warmth gathered together in shared rest. The presence of life inside the small structure contrasts gently with the vast quiet outside. A child breathes softly and does not move again. Even the stream nearby feels different now, not in sound, but in feeling, as if it too senses the approaching return of day. Back in the city, everything remains peaceful and undisturbed. No movement. No sound. Only the patient transition of time. The Victorian world rests fully in this final stretch of night, where everything is held in balance between darkness and the first hint of light. And then, slowly, almost imperceptibly, the sky begins to brighten just a little more. Not enough to wake anyone. Not enough to change anything yet. But enough to mark the beginning of return. Morning is coming again, as it always does. And within the sleeping homes, Victorian children continue to rest peacefully through it all, carried gently through the final moments of night, where the world remains soft, quiet, and still, until the new day is finally ready to begin.